Hi, this is Emily Leiphart of Art from the Heart, and in this video I'll be creating 2-in-1 thank you cards and birthday party favor pouches using Neat Tangled products. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll have already seen the custom Lego minifigures the partygoers will be getting in their loot bags. In the past, I've done loot bags or boxes and thank you cards separately, but this year I tried to come up with something different. Once my son decides on a theme for his party, I order from both the Pick-a-Brick and Bricks and Pieces sections at lego.com to create a minifigure that best suits the theme. We would have gone with Minecraft, but since we can't get enough Minecraft pieces for a full minifigure, we went with our second love, Ninjago. These are all the pieces for Lloyd, the green ninja. In one season, Lloyd is possessed by a ghost named Moro, so we decided to include the evil head for more playability. Here's a quick look at what I'll be creating in this video. It's a thank you card at first, but when the kids open it up, there will be a 3D emoji that lifts up to reveal a hidden Ziploc bag filled with the 8 Lego pieces. I'll be using 4 Neat Tangled products, including the pixelated circle die, which is similar to the pixelated heart die, the pixelated faces dies, and for the sentiments I'll be combining Square Thoughts and Itty Bitty Welcoming Committee. I'm going to start by die cutting the faces for the emojis using the center of the pixelated circle die. Then I'll use the larger piece for the pop-up inside the card that holds the Lego pieces. Now that I have all my emoji pieces die cut, I can adhere them to shape the faces. This first one is a sunglass face, and it's very appropriate since my son is always wearing his sunglasses. He loves them to protect his eyes from the sun as much as he does when it's cloudy and windy. To line up the sunglasses, I'm putting the band just above the corner indicated by my left pointing finger, and I'm setting it 1 square or 1 pixel off the edge of the yellow circle. That way it's exactly 1 pixel off the edge on the right side too. If you're making these, you can place the sunglasses as high or as low as you like, but this is where I think they look best. Next, I add little white corners to show the reflection of the sun. I like to use glossy accents as an adhesive for this purpose because it's so strong that I only need to use a bit of it. It also dries fast, and that's always a plus. Then I add a smirky smile, because it's always fun and shows a lot of personality. I place the smile 2 pixels above the bottom edge of the yellow circle and make sure that it's centered against the chin part of the face. For the second face, which goes inside the card, it's easier to adhere the smile first. This time I use a regular smile with black lips since the eyes will be red hearts. I place it 2 pixels above the bottom of the yellow circle, just like the smirky smile. The curves of the smile will line up with the cheeks of the face, like a staircase. Now for the eyes. I found the best position for them is to make sure there's a ½ pixel between the hearts and the sides of the face, or the temples, as well as a ½ pixel between the eyes. That way they're spaced out evenly from side to side as well as between each other. Once the eyes are in position, I leave one in place while I apply adhesive to the back of the other. This helps me know where I need to line up that heart when I'm adhering it to the face. To create one of these thank you cards / party favor pouches, I'm cutting a single 8.5 inch by 11 inch letter-sized piece of linen cardstock in half down the center lengthwise. This provides me with 2 A2 card bases that will open up from the bottom. One of these pieces will be the outside of the card and the other will be the inside. I take my Martha Stewart mini scoring board and score the front of the card down the center at 5.5 inches. Next, I'm going to stamp my signature on the back of this panel because it's always easier to do it at the start of the card as opposed to when the card is completed and no longer flat. I'll place the folded card front into the misti and stamp the sentiment, which is a combined sentiment from Square Thoughts and Itty Bitty Welcoming Committee. I fought against cutting apart the thank you because of the layout being so perfect for the speech bubble that comes with the Square Thoughts set, but I wanted the font to match the sentiment that was going on the inside of the card. Placing the words side by side was just too perfect with the secondary sentiment from Itty Bitty Welcoming Committee. However, if you aren't mass producing, I wouldn't recommend cutting it apart, but since I was, there was no way I was going to mask off each word multiple times. Now the tricky part of this card. The 2 bars on the side will need to be placed at the fold, so exactly at 5.5 inches. I'll need to score the sheet of cardstock at the halfway point, but I'll need to make sure that I don't score it all the way across, otherwise I get an ugly fold at the center of the 3D part of the circle, as seen in this sample. The bar runs about a ½ inch in before the circle part of the die starts, so I'll score a ½ inch down from the 5.5 inch mark. Since it's hard to tell where the 5.5 inch mark is on the other side of the card, I'll just turn it 180 degrees and do the same thing. Find the 5.5 inch score line and drag the tool down a ½ inch. Next, we're going to die cut the pixelated circle die from the panel. I place the sheet in my Big Shot and line up the bars of the die with the 2 scored lines. Just make sure that your entire die is centered across the width of the card base and that there is equal distance between the 2 sides and the edges of your die. The bars should naturally lock themselves into the score lines, but you can use washi tape to hold it in place if you're more comfortable with that. Now for the flap of the card, which lifts to reveal the party favor. To create the flap, I'll be using the circle die with the partial die cutting technique. I'm going to place the circle in the center of the 3D portion of the die cut panel. You can see the raised ridges from the larger die cut, so it's easy to center. For partial die cutting, I'll need a smaller plate that doesn't cover the entire die. I saved a broken plate for this very purpose, but you can also use the on-the-edge dies that are made by Sizzix solely for this purpose. Since I'm creating a flap and need the top part attached to the card, I'm covering up every part of the die but that top part. I'm placing the partial plate about 1 square or 1 pixel below that top edge and then running it through. When it's done, you have this great flap for hiding the party favors. At this point, I'm going to adhere the sunglass face to the front of the card. I want it to be really secure, so I'm going to use score tape. Now for the tricky part, we're going to fold the 3D portion of the card. To make it easier, I do some extra scoring using my scoreboard. Place the bottom of the card against the left edge of the scoreboard. Look for the lines at the base of the 3D shape. I'll be scoring all 9 of those lines, starting at the ends of the cut lines. The die itself already creates score lines, but I find them too shallow. Just use your scoring tool and follow those lines. Since the 3D shape needs to bend in the opposite direction at the top of the cut lines, I'm going to flip the card over before scoring the top end. Next, I use those extra scored lines to help form the pop-up shape. First, I crease the very top of the shape just above the flap. Then I start to push out the bottom of the pop-up. It's easier if you push in against the bottom of the pop-up with one hand while pushing out at the top from the inside. Definitely start at the sides and then work your way towards the middle. The middle will actually form on its own when the sides are done. Then you'll be able to pull the 3D form forward from the front and fold the card flat. Now I'm going to show you how I attach the Ziploc bags to the flap. I do this before attaching the emoji so that the staple is completely hidden. I put the Lego pieces into the bag and staple the bag against the flap with the bag open. That way only the back of the bag is attached and the recipient can open the bag without having to rip it off the flap. It remains as part of the card after the minifigure is removed. These Ziploc bags are bigger than I'd like, but since I already had them for die storage, it was convenient to use them. I just fold them in half to tuck the package into the raised 3D form. Now I can adhere the heart eyes face to the front of the flap to hide the staple. Again, I'm using score tape for this because I want it to be very secure. I should have done the stamping inside the card before raising the 3D structure, but it's easy enough to do now as long as it's done before this insert is adhered to the front of the card. First, I'm going to use Altenews Crimson ink to stamp a heart from Square Thoughts in the center of the clean area at the bottom of the panel. Then I'm going to use Memento Tuxedo black ink to stamp a sentiment from the same set. The sentiment will overlap the heart just a bit, and when I ask my son to sign the cards, he'll start his name slightly over top of the heart on the right-hand side. Now that both parts of the package are complete, I can adhere them together. When adhering these 2 pieces together, I have to be careful about where I place the adhesive. Since it has moving parts, I can't place adhesive across the entire back or the card won't be able to open and close. It'll be too stiff and then the cardstock will start to bend and one of the pieces will tear. This is true even if you're not putting a pouch in the center of the 3D portion, but especially true when you're adding bulk. The simplest way to do this is to use a really strong adhesive like score tape on the bottom section, about 1.5 inches from both ends. You don't have to be quite so precise at the top, but for the bottom I place the 2 pieces side by side so I know where the bottom of the 3D section ends and I avoid putting my adhesive strips above that. Then I remove the backing and place the inside piece against the middle fold of the outside piece. When the front and back pieces are lined up perfectly, I push the 2 pieces together permanently. It doesn't really matter whether the corners of the Ziploc bag are sticking out or if they're tucked in. In fact, if they're tucked in, it'll be hard for the recipient to know that there's a flap there and that there is something underneath unless they look at the side of the card to find out why it's bulky. Movement-wise, it really makes no difference. So here's a final look at the finished product, which is a thank you card and party favor all in one. If you decide to make a version of this, be sure to leave a comment with a link to your gallery or post. I'd love to see what you come up with. Please refer to the supply links below if you're interested in any of the products I used in this video. You can also visit my blog for stills and more information about this project. Thanks so much for watching.